Good morning, everybody. Welcome.
Good morning, Innovation Nation. My name is Robert Snyder. I'm dialing in from Chicago.
I'm
Ben
Benjamin
is
Lloyd from Philadelphia.
and We're relatively new friends, and we found a common bond in the arts, and we decided we had a lot to talk about, and we felt our networks would um, enjoy being in the gallery and maybe even joining us in the comments section. So I will start with introducing my illustrious conversation partner this morning. Benjamin Lloyd is based in Philadelphia in the great state of Pennsylvania in the United States. He's a consultant, trainer, and professional coach. He helps teams improve their interpersonal dynamics, their productivity, and their emotional intelligence through the power of play and applied improvisation. Ben holds degrees from Yale and Cornell.
Robert Snyder is based in the second city, not the second city, second to no city, Chicago, Illinois, USA. He is an author, public speaker, and project management and change management consultant. Robert helps organizations convert from software centric methodologies to people centric methodologies. Robert holds degrees from the University of Illinois and Northwestern. So, Robert, I thought maybe one of the, sort of foundational, before we get into sort of specific ways the performing arts support our work, let's just start with the basic, the bottom, which is the why. So why does it matter to you? Why would you focus on bringing what you've learned from the performing arts into your consulting practice?
Thank you for that question, Ben. If I build a list of just words off the top of my head, it's fun, it's collaboration, it's intimacy, and it's profitability. I think that the performing arts are the channel, an excuse, a practice, a discipline for companies and teams to explore and build and benefit from each other's skills and experience.
Did you have like an aha moment? Did you have like an experience as you were growing and evolving where some light bulb went off or
I think there were a series of small light bulbs in my 20s when in the workplace I kept hearing these casual remarks about the performing arts. Things like, words like orchestrate or in sync or dance or let's wing it, let's improvise. So I would hear these casual references to the arts. And over the last 10 years, I decided, if you give me an inch, I'm going to take a mile.
hmm, yeah.
What about you? Did you have one light bulb, a series of light bulbs?
No, yeah, I don't know that it was. Well, I have an interesting origin story maybe for my specific technique, which is that I design basically they're little tiny one act plays that represent the challenge or the theme that my clients want to explore, and I have actors perform them. So it's like the clients are watching this little play of this thing that they want to work on. And we can get more into the nuts and bolts of that later. But I actually developed this technique through my work with people with disabilities because I was trying to figure out how to create a theatrical experience for this community that didn't involve a lot of memorization, a lot of reading, and it actually wasn't a huge leap to go like, oh, well, we just have to make up a story together, and it has to have a beginning and a middle and an end, and then we have to cast ourselves in it, and we'll just explore it, And it was through that work that I guess the light bulb was, this is really amazing for everybody because I was seeing all of the ways in which that community was learning how to be human beings with each other, how to live in the world with each other, how to explore relationships, which for people on the autism spectrum can be a big challenge. But what started to occur to me is like we all need to explore relationships. Where do we go to explore relationships except just sort of by trial and error in the relationships that we already have? And so improvisation is this extraordinary way to explore the experience of being in relationship with somebody else. And then if you have a good coach or a good teacher, you're learning how to be accepting, be dynamic, be creative, be courageous in that relationship. And you're learning this incredible level of trust with somebody else. That was sort of the light bulb that got me started.
I love that. So I'm smiling because Ben, we are 6 minutes into this conversation, and you're already sending me in 10 delicious directions. So let me just, as I'm writing here, reacting, absorbing what you're saying, I wrote down there's a play. The play could be fact or fiction for the actors, and it can weave between both. There's no wrong answer. It could be current state, a future state. It could be the current troubled, unacceptable state. It could be the aspirational state. Um, there's a certain freedom in not caring whether the story that the protagonists weave is it fact, fiction, is it what I'm hopeful for. There's so much safety and freedom when we establish that wherever we go, it's the right answer. There is no wrong answer. Early this morning, I was in a London-based event where business analyst professionals were talking about the culture trait of loneliness and uh, how prevalent loneliness is in the workplace.
It's a plague. It's a plague, Robert.
Yeah. So the word that comes to my mind, so the opposite of loneliness is intimacy. And in the workplace, of course, I'm talking about intellectual intimacy and empathy for customers. Who are we serving, whether it's internal or external customers? And then I thought of the matriarch of improv. It's another great Chicago story. Her name is Viola Spolin.
I know
So,
her well.
so for our audience, anyone who doesn't know the name Viola Spolin, that is worth 15 to 30 minutes of your time to explore. So I'm trying to keep things surface, Ben, and not go too deep on any of those things. But at least I wanted to get those words out. Uh, which of that resonates with you? Where do you want to go for purposes of creativity for our audience?
Yeah, I'm provoked by and I want to lean into the word intimacy, um, uh, because I think when you say that word in a sort of learning and development context, or really in any kind of casual context, people instantly think you're talking about having sex. Like
Yeah.
and that's not what it means. That I mean, it can mean that, but that's absolutely not, certainly not what it means as a facilitator. So what does it mean? What does it mean? For me, what it means is, in simplest terms, it's getting below the surface of a performative relationship, and I'm using performative sort of in a negative sense this way. Like, I have to be this kind of person with you in the workplace, and this kind of person that I have to be has to behave in certain kinds of ways, and damn the outcomes, right? Whatever it is, that learned behavior. I think there are gender specific learned behaviors that have damaged, I want to say, cisgender men and women, for lifetimes. And I think a lot of this learned behavior comes into the workplace. So one of the things that the performing arts does, and artistic creativity generally, is it allows us to communicate intimately, safely. And that's a key for me. One of the things that I like to say about what I do is there's a hierarchy. First, the experience needs to feel safe. It's my responsibility to make the experience feel safe. I believe that's true for the director in the theater, the conductor for the orchestra, the choreographer in the dance piece. You need to create a safe space so that the artist you're working with can really explore. Um, and second, you said this word before, it has to be fun. It has to be like once it feels safe, having, intimate conversations, which really basically means conversations about stuff that matters, has to be fun. It has to feel like, oh my God, this isn't scary. I've wanted to have this conversation for a long time. And now I'm having it and it feels great. And then the third layer is meaningful. So I walk away from this experience going, I feel a little changed. I feel a little altered by that encounter I had through this workshop, through this experience. And I know, as a person who grew up in the theater, that's gold for me when I walk away from an experience as a performing artist feeling like I have been changed and shifted as a human being. And it happens when I'm sitting in the audience too. That's what I pay my money for. I want that. So I'm wondering if any of that resonates with you in terms of your experience, both as a person studying in the performing arts, but also as a person working with business.
Absolutely. And again, when you see me look away from the camera, it's because I'm writing down micro reactions to what you're saying. So what I wrote down here: intimacy, listening. Let's not stop at one sense. Let's listen with all five senses. When I'm on the dance floor, I'm doing more than listening to my dance partner than just visual, right? We're navigating our way around the dance floor, which is another channel of intimacy, another channel of listening. It's not strictly with the eyes. The art of improv, as you know, helps to convert. Well, let me put this in form of a story. One A co-author of the book Yes and an executive at Second City explained to me at an event that the executives at Second City start their meetings when they're in the same room. They will stand up in a circle and they will turn to their left and they will put their hand on the shoulder of the person next to them and they will say the words out loud, "I got your back," which means I am committed to you not failing. I'm committed to your success, your satisfaction, that sort of thing. And one reason why that's so valuable is because too many of us are in an environment of watch your back. And so the art of improv helps us. I mean, that in and of itself is a form of yes and, because we're tweaking one word. Instead of watch your back, it's I got your back. Intimacy is a form of approval. All of us, even when our self-esteem is strong, approval never hurts. Rarely hurts. I'll say, for purpose of today, we imbibe in approval. There was a huge business analyst conference in London earlier this week. And on LinkedIn, I'm seeing a ton of praise and thank you and congratulations to a bunch of the speakers. So it's delightful to see this positive reinforcement. And I think the world generally needs more positive reinforcement for the general population. The performing arts, even if you're the only person on stage, it's never a solo act. There are people backstage who are the house managers. They shepherd the audiences into the theater, into their seats, etc. So the word ensemble, right? In French, the French interpretation of the word ensemble is the word together. One of my favorite quotes is, "We were together. I forgot the rest." And I think that is a lovely sentiment for teamwork. It's like, I don't really remember what we were in. That tiptoes in the
We're just working together. We'll figure
Maya
out why.
the Maya Angelou casts a large positive shadow. I'm just remembering how we felt. We were together. I forgot the rest. In my lessons learned template, in my books and in my exercises for my teams, safety is the very first culture trait, because I deliberately sequenced the culture traits in this lessons learned template according to urgency and preciousness. And so we're on the same page. That's safety, inclusivity, a sense of belonging, SIB. Safety, inclusivity, and a sense of belonging. It's absolutely first. And so I'll end my little rant here with a beautiful image in a dance studio. 10 years ago, I met a woman named Lisa Labarica. And for any Chicago Latin dancers, they know her name well. We're standing in a studio, we're beginners, and our eyes are we're glued to the mirror. How do I look? Am I doing this right? We are so self absorbed in our own steps. We're looking at our feet, and the awkward silence is broken by Lisa saying to us, if you're smiling, you're doing it right. So, so yes, find the fun, and that is a tenet of improv as well. Uh, there are no mistakes. Um, we don't have to be funny. So yeah, again, I'm trying to hit my personal pause button here, Ben.
Yeah, no, there's so much there. I have to get this quote out. You talked about how in the performing arts everybody has a job to do, and I think that's one of the great lessons that we bring to the world of business consulting, is this understanding. One of my favorite quotes is by the great Russian teacher who invented realistic acting.
Mm.
For those of you who don't know, there's all different kinds of acting, but the acting that we think of as acting is realistic acting. And guess what? It's a pretty new invention. It was invented in the 20th century by this Russian guy named Konstantin Stanislavski, who many of us in the theater have a lot of different feelings about, but he's one of my heroes. And he said, the play begins in the coat room. And I believe what he meant by that is that person who takes your coat and hangs it up is every bit a part of your experience of that play as the actor who brings you to tears on stage. And so is the stagehand who is helping you off stage. So is the designer who created this extraordinary set. So is the administrative staff that marketed this play and raised the money for it, right? And one of the things that I want to bring to my consulting work is this idea of common purpose. It only works in the performing arts if we believe in that common purpose. Sometimes it's a single person who says, I've got this vision about this Tom Stoppard play. And we all go, wow, what a vision that is, right? We're all going to try to make this happen. Sometimes it's more about like, I need to reach this audience that is not seeing enough theater. And we're like, yes, we have to diversify our audience, right? But that idea of common purpose is so central to any collaborative creative enterprise, and it's essential in the workplace too. So a lot of my work is about asking the question, do you know what your mission is in this company? Do you have a mission? You know, Robert, I think one of the great, along with the plague of loneliness, which is huge and one of the great reasons to start to study creativity with other people. Um, oh, did I lose this thought? Oh, meaning, meaning. We need to find meaning in what we do. And if there's no meaning in what we do, we shrivel up, you know, and so part of what I try to do is say there's potentially meaning in anything you do. So what is that meaning, you know? I don't want to throw too much of a curveball at you, but I'm really interested in this distinction you make between software-centric methodology and human-centric methodology. Um, and at some point, I'd love to hear you talk more about that distinction.
Sure. Well, I can cover that now, and let's see if I can like cap it to 60 seconds. So a 30-year career in IT. Um, I started as a programmer, so I knew tech. At least I knew software. I knew a little bit of hardware. And about 20 years ago, there was a very high-profile document published called the Agile Manifesto, and its title is the Manifesto for Agile Software Development. So it's very software centric, right? It's in the title. And the first sentence says, we are uncovering better ways of developing software and teaching others to do it. I think I'm pretty close to citing that word for word. We are uncovering better ways of developing software. So this body of work is clearly software centric, despite some folks arguing that it's people centric. Um, so my work effectively tweaks the words, and my work, if if I wrote a manifesto, um, the first sentence is, we are uncovering better ways of innovation teamwork. Code is not at risk. Your code is going to be fine. Code is just one dimension. It is one activity. It's one product. It's one output of innovation teamwork. There are a whole lot of other things other than code and software upstream that are critical, that are vital for innovation teamwork. Um, Software is a wonderful servant. It is a horrible master.
Mm.
In that sentence, we can swap out that word and insert other things. Meetings and emails are wonderful servants. They are horrible masters. Technology, data, money, and sex. These are all wonderful servants. They are horrible masters. And so I think it's valuable to keep these things in their place. And so the VUCA, the volatility, uncertainty, complexity, and ambiguity, the heartburn, the jeopardized mental health and toxicity in our workplace, um, the Agile Manifesto is not helping. The Agile Manifesto was a reaction to what was going on with the web in the mid and late 1990s.
Mm.
That software centricity, I believe the value has plateaued. It had its time and place, and it absolutely made sense for where the web was 25 and 30 years ago. The world has moved on, and websites, technology, businesses, they're different. So I believe that the software-centric methodologies, Agile and its partner in crime, these are not the frontier of business. They're not the frontier of methodology. They're not at the frontier of profitability. They're not at the frontier of customer experience. And that's what my work is about, is explaining what a people-centric methodology is and how vital the performing arts are as a role model for these collaborative culture traits. So again, I'll try to hit my personal pause button, ending with this. For the last 20 years, companies have been touting this phrase, competitive advantage, competitive advantage. Ladies and gentlemen, we can check the box. We're a hyper-competitive society, and our companies are hyper-competitive places. Our next hour of effort and labor and collaboration, I believe, is more valuable on this in the spirit of collaboration. It's one thing to have a competitive advantage, good for you. It's another thing to have a collaborative advantage, imitating a symphony, imitating a dance couple, imitating a theater organization, or if we're on script, great, we're imitating theater. If we're off script, great, we're imitating improv. But that is where the frontier of profitability is, and the arts are fun, familiar, financially attractive role models to achieve a collaborative advantage.
Mm-hmm.
If your project plan doesn't imitate a symphony, you sound terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Pause. I'm hitting my pause button.
Okay. It's really inspiring stuff, Robert. I'm sure you have faced this dilemma. Part of what my work is when I'm speaking to a prospective client, there's a portion of what I do that is convincing that person that what I'm bringing to the table is not a soft skill, is not an extra or somehow sort of like an extracurricular thing
Ancillary.
that comes after
Yeah.
all of the really hard, data driven stuff, right? What I'm trying to say is, and you just said it, the future of profitability is in collaborative advantage, not in competitive advantage. Um, Something this brings up for me is, for some reason, I'm all about plagues today. Here's my third plague I'm going to mention, the binary plague. The binary plague, which is this fetish, especially in American culture, to take any decision-making challenge that we have and reduce it to two options.
Mm.
And I believe that part of it is, so let me just, for the sake of clarity, yes, no. right, wrong. In the political sphere, liberal, conservative. Like most of us are, we're on a continuum about a lot of this stuff. I um, I have been powerfully affected by the trans community. Um, I have a trans relative who's very dear to me, and I was surprised to learn about myself how entrenched my connection was to that binary. Like you're male or female, and my trans relative is saying to me, actually, that's a spectrum too. That's a spectrum too. We have aspects of feminine energy, we have aspects of masculine energy. Some of us tend very strongly in one direction, tend very strongly in another, right? So let me get back to the plague. The plague is we take complex, nuanced situations and we try to turn them into binary outcomes, and it's terribly damaging in the world of human relationships, which are full of complexity and nuance. And so something that is true for you just may not be true for somebody else, and you can both be right. So then the challenge isn't making sure that person understands that they're wrong. The challenge is understanding where they're coming from and finding a way forward. And that gets back to the yes and brilliance of improvisation, right? I'm not denying your information or your position. You have a right to it, right? I have a different position. We need to work together. Let's create a story in which that happens. You know, I I, I think the source of this binary plague has two sources. One is competitive athletics, which I love. I'm a huge sports fan. And it's one of the places where a binary outcome works, right? In a football game, there's a winner and there's a loser, and that's part of why you watch. But I also think capitalism plays a part in this obsession we have about binary outcomes, because we're so. This gets into the software thing too. We're so driven to create numbers that somehow support our point of view. And numbers they generally lack nuance. Numbers are where binary outcomes can work. On a spreadsheet, I need to see if I've made money or lost money. There's no nuance in that. I either made money or I lost money. And a binary decision-making process or outcome in that situation is incredibly important and useful, right? But to apply that mindset to human relationships, to collaborative enterprises, to creative thinking, to innovation is hugely damaging. And so I wonder if you have felt this, right? I find myself, I have to sort of lift all of this up in front of the person that I'm speaking to, and then reduce it by like what I just said. I could never say any of that to a prospective client. They'd be like, okay, thanks, bye. Right. So I have to like package it in a way that makes sense. I don't know if that rings any bells
Mm-hmm.
for you or not.
So yes, I continue to just again write notes in response. One topic that I feel you're tiptoeing into is there's a distinction between simple and simplistic.
Hmm.
Uh, Numerous times over the course of my career, um, I have heard the phrase, "This is over engineering. This is over engineered. You're over analyzing." Okay, that is a perspective. And some things in the business world and in human interaction, they are not they're not simple, they're complex, or they're complicated. Um, but how often does under engineering happen, or being under analytical, or not thinking about something enough? That is also a problem. And so I did want to bring up for our audience that I think there's a valuable distinction in having a backbone about how much analysis, how much reflection, how much complexity and complication you see in something, because being simplistic means you need to think more about these things. So simplistic, I use that term in a negative light pretty often, but the word simple, which is only a few keystrokes different, I like the word simple. And I just think that's a helpful distinction.
Hmm.
Um, Simple and simplistic are not the same things.
Because we want to overcomplicate stuff. Sometimes I feel like we overcomplicate stuff in order to prove to ourselves and to everybody else that we're really intelligent, because we're thinking about all these million and one different things, and really what we're doing is we're getting in our own way, and so the simple solution is where it matters. Something else that's coming up for me, Robert, is attention span and the ability to focus on something for longer than 3 seconds. And one of the things that theater has taught me, has bred into me, is the ability to stay focused on an experience, on a process, on a journey for an extended period of time. Um, Improvisation is interesting in that, so one of the distinctions between theater and improvisation is when I'm focusing on that extended experience in theater, I know what the outcome is going to be because we've rehearsed it. When I'm focused on it in improvisation, I have no idea what the outcome is going to be, which is what makes improvisation so extraordinary in a lot of ways. Um, but I believe that bringing, a performing arts ethic or point of view into the workplace sort of automatically brings with it this ability for sustained focus. And that includes sustained focus when it's frustrating, sustained focus when it's not working. So we don't just go, I'm going to go back to my phone now, right? No, you actually stay with it and acknowledge, right? Wow, this is really frustrating, and continue to kind of work through it. Or maybe you do go away, but you come back. And when you come back, something's shifted and changed. I know as an actor, there's been moments in a rehearsal or the development of a character that have felt impenetrable to me. And then we get our day off. And sometime during the day off, something goes off in my head, and I come back for the next rehearsal. And I'm like, I need to try this thing, right? Um, that's an extraordinary sustained concentration that includes unconscious concentration, when there are parts of our brains that are continuing to consider and work on objects when we are consciously thinking about other things. And I believe the performing arts teaches that as well. I wonder if you have any thoughts about any of that.
So you're reminding me of what I'd like to be the new hybrid. So over the last 10 years, we've had two versions of hybrid. In the IT world, there's this thing called, well, we're Wagile. We're part waterfall and agile. We're Wagile. We're Edgefall. So that's one version of hybrid. And with the pandemic, now we have a new hybrid that navigates between virtual work, remote work, and in-office work. Great. So through the lens of the performing arts, how about a new hybrid between theater and improv? Because theater teaches us how to be on script. Improv teaches us how to work in a fog and be off script. Either is great, either is fine, but not knowing may not be fine. But I think it's helpful for us to be intentional and aware. Just have self-awareness of, are we working in a fog here? And that might be
Well,
okay. But there's a time and place to be in a fog and have ambiguity. And there's time to have muscle memory, have a script, have a SOP, a standard operating procedure, uh, so that we reduce reinventing the wheel in our businesses. And so going back to this term about ambiguity, this is my opponent, ambiguity, and the whole VUCA thing. It is a skill to be able to work within ambiguity. But you know what else is a skill? Reducing ambiguity. Clarity is empathy. When you are setting expectations for your team, you can pivot, you can change, but you can't have zero expectations. That's nailing cello to the wall. And there's no accountability or alignment when you're just a blob. When you have, if you feel you have a license for low expectations, mm, that doesn't smell like profitability to me. So I think that the concept of expectations can be really valuable for teams, and your primary audience and my primary audience. This notion of expectations, um, it helps people feel safe and confident, um, and it gives us courage to change our minds if and when we learn new things. And so I'll end there for now on that. This concept of expectations, um, I think it is a concept for teams to rally around,
Hmm.
so that we minimize surprises. We minimize demonizing. Disagreeing is okay. Demonizing is not okay. Task conflict is okay. Personality conflict is not okay. And setting and then meeting expectations, and getting into a rhythm of expectations, is wonderful collaboration.
It's a balance, though, isn't it, Robert? Because so one of my favorite words to live by um, comes from a book my mom sent me. My mom has this. She has this way of sending me books just kind of like out of nowhere, and they're like, I'm like, how did you know that this was exactly the book I needed to read? And she did it a long time ago with a book called The Fourfold Way by a now departed anthropologist named Dr. Angeles Ariane. Um, and it's a really complex study of uh, belief systems of indigenous and tribal people. Um, but she's distilled similarities down to what she calls the fourfold way. One, show up and be present. Two, pay attention to what has heart and meaning. Three, tell the truth without judgment or blame. Four, be open to outcome, but not attached to outcome. And these are my words to live by. They're in a little frame in my bedroom. And that's that last one that dovetails with the idea of expectation. Be open to outcome, but not attached to outcome. So I think the danger with expectation sometimes is we can trick ourselves into feeling like, unless it ends exactly this way,
Mm,
then we have failed or it's been a waste of time.
mm,
My feeling is that if we work on something, we're almost guaranteed to end up with an outcome that's not what we expected,
mm,
because our work on it is going to shift it and change it as we work on it automatically. If we're doing a good job of working on it, we're suddenly going to realize, oh my God, it doesn't need to have square edges. It should have round edges. And we only realize that because we were working on it together.
mm.
So I think it's a balancing act. I know that in my work with people on the autism spectrum, having that framework is extraordinarily important. Like being able to say, this is how it's going to start, then it's going to go there, and then we know at the end, the pirate comes back to the port and the princess gets married to the prince. So we've established that. That's what's going to happen. But now we're going to figure out like what, like
Yeah.
how we get there, you know? I don't know. I'm going to I'm
Yeah.
going to hit my pause button now and see if you have anything to say about any of
So
that.
so my the reason why I use the word expectation, is because I do not want to use the word agreement. And in the IT world, in the structured innovation world, there's this term called sign off.
Hmm.
Holy accountability, Batman. And the word sign off might make people nervous. And this is one thing that the agile world is aiming to do, is to stay flexible and to not be rigid. And so you're
What is, can you just tell me what sign off means? What does that mean?
sign off like, hey, if let's say we are doing a construction project, and we've got certain blueprints and plans and a schedule, and we've got 4 different construction companies involved, and we've got all this stuff on paper, and there are signatures to be had to maximize the chance that we are aligned on stuff. So a signature is, the colloquial term, often is sign off, approval. Did who signed?
I approve. I see what
Yeah,
you want to do. I see the outcome.
Yeah.
I approve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so sometimes in construction, things change and negative surprises happen. And sometimes it's a big deal and sometimes it's not. And so because I respect the things that respect the fact that things might change, they may need to change. Um, I avoid using the word agreement. I'm backing off from old uses that I had for the word agreement because I used to like this term. A healthy team is a kind of agreement factory. A family, we agree on our vacation. We agree on what we're having dinner for tonight. We agree on where we're going to move. We agree on schools. Um, we agree on whether we're paying our kids tuition or not. But the word agreement is too rigid. So my the spirit in which I use the word expectation instead is to welcome change, to welcome pivoting. Um, but I also don't want teams to have a license uh, for being a blob and having no expectations. I think
Right.
it's fair. And so, as your point earlier, it is a spectrum of confidence. And I love the use of the term. This is a 20% confidence level. This is an 80% confidence level on a scale from 1 to 10. How right? I think these are useful uh, terms to use uh, so that we minimize surprises if and when we change our minds.
Hmm.
Is that fair?
Yeah, I like it. I just want to notice that, much to my surprise, we're almost 45 minutes into this discussion, and I feel like we just started.
Yeah.
I want to invite any audience that wants to share a thought, ask a question. Um, Again, Robert and I have never done this before, so we're kind of experimenting with the tech here. I'm looking now at the LinkedIn Workplace situation, and I noticed that there is a place where you can add a comment in as you're watching this. So feel free to do that. Feel free to shoot either Robert or I a LinkedIn direct message with a comment or a question. And then finally, we're using this software called Restream, which says that messages from the audience will display here. So I'm not sure how that works, but we would love to hear your thoughts about that as we go forward. But Robert, I want to go back to that wonderful moment that you described with your dance teacher when she's staring at a bunch of people who've never done this before and are feeling an enormous amount of anxiety about getting it wrong. And she said to you, if you're smiling, you're doing it right. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And so I want to just talk about what the performing arts teaches us about welcoming newcomers, about having a beginner's mind, about the concept of failure generally, because I know that in any artistic enterprise, if you're new to it, you have to be willing to be a dork. At the beginning, you just have to be willing
Rookie
to like,
mistake. Rookie mistake.
well, not even mistake, just like I don't know how to do this, but I want to show you something actually.
Yeah.
This is an electronic drum set
Love
here.
it. Love it.
I have never played the drums before in my life. I turned 60, and so it's like a bucket list thing because
Yeah.
I've always fantasized about being a rock and roll drummer. So I bought myself an electronic drum set in July, and I just basically torture it. I put on the headphones and try to get this hand and my right foot to do three different things, and it's just crazy. But I love it. I love it. I love just kind of wailing away. I put my ear pods in and then put the headphones over them and listen to, AC/DC and stuff like that, and just see if I can keep up. So there's something beautiful about what the performing arts, how it welcomes the beginner, how it nurtures the beginner. And of course, I can tell you stories about nightmare teachers who came from the old school, who taught through fear and intimidation. Um, and that's a horrible legacy. And I hope, God, I hope we have grown out of that legacy. But I'm wondering if you have any thoughts about that, the idea of the beginner's mind. It's a Zen concept, but also the idea of welcoming and inclusiveness.
If I, if I, so yes, and if I steer that topic into a really, really hard nosed, brass tacks business version of beginners, it's about succession planning.
Hmm.
So I think that there's value in um, unconventional paths of succession planning. I think many companies focus at the top of their hierarchy, and I think there's a lot of value in investing in junior employees. They've got fresh ideas. A lot of them are great listeners because they know they've got a lot to learn. Um, Junior employees are doing a lot of really valuable listening. In my previous employer, some of the best ideas came from the junior salespeople because they're watching everyone senior to them. They're watching the client. They're at the intersection of revenue, um, and they're bringing in a whole wealth of experience and ideas from the outside. Um, so I think that the beginners arena is a TRE, a target rich environment for buying low. I'm going to put it now, I'm going to cross pollinate into the investment world. Buy low and sell high. We think about that in the stock market. Well, let's think about people. Can I invest in my customer? Can I invest in my employees? What does it mean to buy low and sell high? I hope that my books, my public speaking, within 15 minutes, within a 1 hour session, I'm investing in my audience. And within an hour, they're in a very different place. And even if I never talk to them again, if I never cross paths with them again, I hope that it's a form of selling high. Um, our parents may have taught us the phrase, always leave things better than you found them. It's really the same thing, right? So, the beginner, the fearlessness of you on the drum set, right? This is the beginner's arena. Um, when I was a beginner in dancing, I was trying to convey to folks, if I can do this, you can do this. So it can also be a form of encouragement, um, spreading the like evangelizing the fearlessness. And so I love the beginner mindset for a number of ways. And again, I'll try to end it with a beginner's mindset helps interchangeability. Let's say you play more than one instrument. Let's say you are a beginner at drums, but you are a beginner at trumpet, a beginner on saxophone, a beginner on cello, and the ensemble that you're in on a certain day needs a drum player or they need a cello player. So you are more helpful or more valuable to your ensemble, to your organization, because you can help in a number of different ways. And so someone who shrugs or who is fearful of being a beginner and the humility that comes with it, um, because of your insecurity, uh, you you be you cultivate this disadvantage for yourself, and you cultivate a disadvantage for your ensemble because of your really strong grasp on the current state and your refusal to be a beginner on something else. So being
Yeah.
a beginner, it's an advantage for you personally, and it's an advantage for your organization. If you say, drum set, fearless, bring it, bring the new challenge, uh, because the value is on the other side. Uh, it's on the other side of those beginning dance lessons.
That's awesome. So, Robert, we have our first comment question here. It comes from Robin. And Robin says, I think life is a long form improv exercise. There is no script. Can you talk more about how learning to go off script is the on ramp to profitability? That's great. And Robin, yes, 100%. This is what we're doing. We're living in a long form improv. We just don't know it. We don't accept it. Um, how learning to go off script is the on ramp to profitability. So I'm going to just I'm going to share another quote by President Eisenhower the man who orchestrated the D-Day invasion. Talk about a an unbelievable amount of planning and preparation. President Eisenhower said, "Planning is imperative. Plans are useless." Planning is imperative. Plans are useless. I love that as an improviser. I like, so how does it relate to profitability? So this is going to sound like a cliche. Um, it, 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 we live in a business atmosphere where things change so rapidly that if we're not skilled at being nimble and being flexible and being able to let go of a preconceived idea about how something is supposed to go and actually deal with what is, which is a big important part of the improviser's mindset. Not inventing something, but like saying, "Oh, you just said that," or "You just told me that you're my daughter. I accept that. Okay, you're my daughter now in this story that we're telling." Right? Um, that leads to profitability, because ultimately, what are you doing? You're meeting the customer's needs where the customer is at. You're not saying, "Oh, sorry, this doesn't fit our business plan." You're able to say, "Wow, the customers are telling us they needed something we didn't expect to hear them say they needed. So we're going to pivot and we're going to improvise and we're going to figure out how we can get them that thing that they need." And that's where the profitability comes in.
Awesome. Um, my reaction to this question, I thought of 3 different points I'd like to make. When you are off script, you are listening. It's not about you. Every business and every professional has a decision to make. Who is your customer? Narcissists have it the worst because their customer pool is one. Um, their customer, like, there's just one customer. For everyone else, there are many, many customers. And so when you are off script and you're improvising, the work is not about you. It is about the collaboration space. You are listening and you are being a student. You are behaving as a lifelong student. So um, the more customers and the more potential customers you have, that is you are prone to profitability. Um, the more customer options you have, you as an organization or as an individual can be picky and demanding. You can be selective. Versus if I'm a narcissist, I don't have any choices. I've cut. I'm all about myself. I'm not about my customers, and I cut off my options. Um, so improv again is about acting in a student mindset. And the third point I'd like to make, which is a little bit of a paradox, so feel free to push back on this, but through improv, as we keep learning, we have to decide, where are we reinventing the wheel and where can we learn, where do we gather wisdom? So improvisation helps us to distinguish what is explorational and what is muscle memory. What can I automate? And the reason why automation is valuable is because of it is conducive to high volumes. So if I'm a restaurant and I'm very predictable and I have a certain amount of automation, I'm reducing my marginal costs. I'm probably optimizing quality. Maybe I'm Nordstrom, maybe I'm Aldi, maybe I'm a vending machine, but at least I'm thoughtful about the quality. I'm thoughtful about the marginal cost. And so when we improvise, it means we are continually exploring and being humble to the status quo. And we are constantly looking for ways to improve our businesses, our relationships, our customers. And when we reduce marginal cost, so paradoxically, the more we improvise, the more we are licensed and qualified to put those things that we learn and find and discover together under a form of second nature and muscle memory. So it's a bit paradoxical, but I think it's still valuable to point out that being off script, and in the dating world, there's a cliche: we get online to get offline. And so we improvise and we lean into being off script so that we can continue to find more things to be on script. And it's all about the quality of the experience for our customer. So
And
I'll
let's
end with
not
that
forget that
paradox.
improvisation originally was thought of as a means to an end. It was thought of as a way to get to a scripted sketch that would be reliably funny. And
Mm.
very often improvisation in a performance context is used that way to this day. And very often the Saturday Night Live sketches that we see that we laugh at were developed with the germ of an idea and brilliant actors just like developing it and developing it and developing it.
So Ben, can I jump in? Because you're
Yeah.
tiptoeing back to Viola Spolin and disability population. Um, the Viola Spolin story. It is my version is quite short, so I hope our audience can stay with me here. I believe in the early 1900s, Viola Spolin is working with a bunch of children with social anxiety. I think that was the term that it was taught to me. And these kids were so self-absorbed and self-conscious. And she created improv games to enable the students, encourage them, and give them a mechanism, give them mechanics to turn their attention and their energy on others, to turn their energy on the collaboration space so that they would be less self conscious and reduce their social anxiety. We need this in our workplace. The more, uh, the less self absorbed we are because we feel safe, right? The flight attendant everywhere tells you before you help others with their oxygen mask, put on your own oxygen mask. So Viola Spolin and the Art of Improv teach us um, redirect your energy in this environment. You are safe. Redirect your energy to the collaboration space. Um, and so the original customer of improv were children with social anxiety. Um, and so I think, I just want to point that out about just the great story of Viola Spolin and who was her customer? She herself. It was not about herself. It was about her kids.
We're winding down to our end point, Robert. I wonder if now might be a good time to share our contact information so that anyone who's watching that wants to learn more about us can find us easily.
Yeah. So let's see if I'm sharing my screen uh, with just you or if I'm sharing it with everyone. So I don't know if you have a way of doing that, Ben, but really I just put our LinkedIn handles on
Yeah.
this,
So
this
if you're
slide.
watching, if you could just let us know if you can see that, that would be great. Yeah, so there's our LinkedIn options. Yeah. Good. What else we got?
Do we want to wrap up with just closing statements, going back to the title of why did we come together? Why did we feel this conversation would be beneficial for our audiences and our network?
My
Creativity. Go ahead.
the one piece of advice my dad gave me about business is he said, the success of anything you do will be based on the quality of the relationships you make with other people. And that has stuck with me my whole life. And that's really the
Mm,
why for me. I
mm,
want high quality relationships with everybody.
mm. Awesome. Um, so I'll riff off the title, using performance creativity to supercharge your workplace. Performance means that we've got an audience. Audience translates to customer. Creativity with our customer shows that we care. We care about our customer. We have empathy. That is the seed of innovation. All innovation originates from customer empathy. And so Ben and I fiercely feel that there's so much value in the performing arts, imitating their collaborative culture traits. It's a more fun workplace. It's still familiar. It shouldn't feel foreign. Um, and it's very profitable. And that's why we want to encourage our audiences, our networks, to find the fun and whatever your art is, I- imitate it more. And if you're smiling, you're doing it right.
And on that, Bill Dominguez says, make this a regular event. We'll send ideas for future events.
Ah,
Thank you, Bill. Maybe this is the beginning of a podcast, Robert. We'll have to have a powwow about that. I've very much enjoyed our conversation. I find your work inspirational. So here's to more creativity.
mm,
Here's to more improvisation. And here's to more beginner's mind.
mm. Back at you, Ben. Looking forward to it, and we'll chat backstage, right?
Good.
Okay. Enjoy the
See
weekend,
ya.
everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.